you don't go to Dr. Phil. Okay? And I'm not sure if he's a psychiatrist or psychologist, but his relationships are his thing, not, you know.
I think he's an MD.
Is he MD? I'm not sure. My unit gave that guy a ride one day. I didn't even know who he was back then. It's kind of funny that we were down at the Hurricane Katrina gig and cleaning up down there, you know, going looking for bodies and stuff like that. My unit was doing that, and this guy, he's like, hey, yeah, we're going to give Dr. Phil a ride out. They're trying to do some sort of documentary on a SWAT team member down there, and trying to drive him out in that nasty water, you know, flood water, and it was too deep. They couldn't get to the guy's house. But I was like, Doctor who? I didn't know who he was back then. And I've seen him on TV since then. I was like, yeah, I like that guy. He's all right. But yeah, he's not the guy you want to find out about. You know, my wife's going through cancer treatment now, and yeah, I wouldn't let her go to Dr. Phil for advice on how to get her cancer taken care of. So this would be questionable authority. What happens in the realm of academics is somebody has a PhD and all of a sudden they become an expert in every area. No, not. If you know anything about higher education, as a matter of fact, a PhD means they know a whole bunch about a really little subject. Now, American PhDs are a little broader. The European system is a little more narrow. They want you to be the expert in whatever, whereas in American style, it's a little bit more lecture-oriented. They'll have a little more broad kind of knowledge, and then they'll specialize in one thing. But, yeah, because someone has a PhD in something does not make them an expert in anything else. It just doesn't. All right? The appeal or bandwagon, some of these kind of cross lines, all right? Some of these kind of blend into one another, and you'll see that. Appeal or bandwagons, this is through force or threat of force or intimidation being used to coerce an opponent into accepting the conclusion. You know, if you're a red-blooded American, you better, you know, yeah.
I thought that the bandwagon was the popular appeal.
Popular appeal, the opinion of the majority, getting on the bandwagon. A lot of times, yeah, I hear that. I've heard that. I think this is a different way of looking at bandwagon, because it's through some, and it crosses with the what's the other one I want to say? Hang on a second. Appeal to tradition is one that it kind of crosses over with. Yeah. That's why I say some of this kind of overlaps. Because typically, yeah, when I was growing up as a kid, they say, you know, getting on the bandwagon means doing it because everybody else is doing it. And this is another way of looking at it. This is more of a, if you want to be a member of our party, but that's coercive. And that's a bandwagon in the sense of a threat. Because we're not going to accept you as a Republican, Democrat, Independent. Cover them all. If you believe, if you don't believe the same as we do. And of course that goes along with the tradition thing. Those kind of intertwine. The popular appeal is probably the more common one. And that's the one that I remember growing up hearing is getting on the bandwagon. Getting on the bandwagon meaning popular appeal. So I don't disagree with you. I think they kind of intertwine. There's got to be some way to differentiate. Maybe there's another way to term this, but what's that?
Will you say an example of that appeal or bandwagon?
Appeal or bandwagon? Okay.
I get the.
If you if you don't vote Republican, Democrat, Independent, we're going to make sure that you aren't in the next election. So we're not going to, and I'm not sure if force or threat of force. I'm not sure, not necessarily physical violence. This can be coercive in the sense of just to coerce an opponent into accepting the conclusion. It could be for the example of like let's say, for example, you are not persuaded of something. You're not persuaded one way or another about a subject, but somebody says, well, you better make a decision. You better believe abortion is right, wrong, or whatever. Or, we're going to dissociate ourselves with you. You're going to be, put out of our society, or, that would be kind of, not saying that you need to believe it because it's right, but believe it because we're going to do something about it if you don't believe that, or if you don't, act accordingly. That's kind of more. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah.
I'm trying to differentiate here. The popular appeal is often probably termed more like a bandwagon approach, and maybe I should just delete that. But this is more of, well, everybody else thinks this way, and therefore you should think this way. The world's flat after all, isn't it? We all think it's flat. Well, if you don't believe that, you're a heretic, and we're going to burn you at the stake. Okay? There's a mixture. There's tradition involved in that. There is bandwagon appeal. There's a threat. There is popular appeal. Well, the majority of us believe the world is flat, so there's something wrong with you if you don't think the world's flat, So, okay? Okay, hand-waving, claiming that something is so or is not, because everyone else knows it so. See, this is again crossing. It's another way of saying kind of the same thing. It's so because everybody knows that. This is why it's so. Not you better believe it because we're going to do something about it, or because everybody. But it is, matter of fact, so because everybody says so. That's my argument. It is so because we all know the world's flat. I don't have to prove anything. We all know it's flat. It's already decided among the majority. We already know that. Everybody knows that. Who are you to tell me the world's not flat? Okay. Okay, key term. Now see, this is like faulty analogy, equivocation. And I'll highlight these on the study guide, the ones that I really want you to be able to identify. Ad hominem for sure, faulty analogy, popular appeal. Begging the question, that's sort of like the premise and conclusion. When you're talking to, preaching to the choir is another way of terming that. You ever heard that term, preaching to the choir? You already know it's so, and so if I ask you, it's almost like a question that I already know you believe. So it's really not, and who is the best philosophy instructor on campus? Well, you're the only one you know. I'm the only one you know, so, Okay, so it's you see what I mean? It's like preaching to the choir. Okay, that's kind of what that is. Equivocation is a lot like faulty analogy. A key term shifts. The difference being with a faulty analogy, it's the analogy itself has run out. You no longer can compare the apples and oranges. It's not going to work. They're both fruit, but hey, they're different. All right. Down here, this is where equivocation is where a key term has shifted. And that means, like, if you use a word one way, like we're talking about justice, and you try to change the way that you're using the term justice later in the argument, that's wrong. You can't do that. You can't change the way you're using a term. You can't do that. Even if the term has the same meaning. Okay? Even if the term fits both definitions, that's what I'm trying to say. Even if it fits both definitions, you can't switch from one definition to another. You can't change its meaning throughout your argument. Okay, hasty generalization, using a few instances to form universals. This would be, all guys are jerks. Okay, now that might be true, and I'm not denying that. That might be true, okay? But it's unfair to base that on, you went out with a couple of dates with a few guys, whatever, and I'm picking on the ladies for a second. I'll pick on the guys later, don't take it personally. I just always use this one so that, you don't think I'm saying all girls or anything. I'm saying I'm a guy, so I'm putting myself in that category. All guys are jerks. You went out with a couple of them, and they were jerks, and so therefore all guys are jerks. Or you were married to one or two, and they were jerks, and well, all guys are jerks. Well, that is a hasty generalization. That is not fair to take a universal, to make a universal statement out of a few particulars. Now, here's the thing with